Chino from the Deftones. Chino, how are you, man?
Oh, I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm good. It's really great to catch up with you again and be able to talk to you
For sure,
about
man.
music, man.
Yes,
Like,
sir.
it's really when I think back about, playing stuff off Adrenaline for the first time,
Yes.
on MTV. And then
Yeah.
one of my favorite moments was, I think we were in St. Louis.
Yes, sir. I know.
And
I remember that.
do you remember when they were like, dude, you only have to introduce bands on the main stage. And I went, no, I'm going to introduce the Deftones.
I did.
So I went like, remember that?
Yeah, it was like way in
you
the
know,
parking lot. I remember that. I remember that distinctively. I mean, and I remember having a great conversation with you that day. To us, I mean, we were so happy to have you kind of support us. Even back as early on as then, '95, I think that was, maybe '96, but it was pretty early on in our career, and I thought it was awesome. I mean, obviously, growing up being a big fan of alternative music in general, and 120 minutes, and just like I don't know, we felt really special that you chose to do that day. It was awesome.
That's Chino Moreno with Matt Pinfield on August 16th, 2016, an interview I recorded. This is Changing the House of Pods, a podcast about Deftones. My name is Woody, and for the past 10 years, I was a radio DJ at 93X in Minneapolis. I mentioned in the last episode that I was laid off after Christmas, and I got a new job here in town, so this podcast is coming to an end. I'll relaunch and share more episodes with you, so follow me on Instagram and Twitter to find out when and where I'll be, at Woodbruh, WOODBRUH. But before this incarnation of the podcast comes to an end, I'm taking this one episode to tell one of my own Deftones stories. Before I got into radio, I was in sales, and it sucked. I mean, I hated it. Nothing against anybody who's in sales, it just wasn't for me. But one day, I was bailing early from work, on my way home, listening to the radio, and I heard a commercial for a contest. Do you want to be a radio DJ? I remember it vividly. It was actually an admissions ploy for a now-defunct broadcasting school, Brown College. But I figured, fuck it, man, why not? I hated my job, and I was doing some music with some friends, recording for a few years, actually, and I'd had people tell me, that my voice was cool or whatever, and I guess at this point I hated my job so much, I was desperate enough to roll the dice, give it a shot, So I did. I went to the school for the contest, and there were a few dudes there with some big booming voices and stuff, and I don't know, it just seemed corny as hell. But I was there, right? So for the competition, they asked us to write about a concert and record what we wrote. And the winner would get a half a scholarship and a chance to visit the radio station and be a guest on the local show. Well, this was late 2009, early 2010. I had just gotten tickets to see Deftones on the Diamond Eyes tour, and I was fucking geeked. I talked about how excited I was that they were back, how cool it was that they were selling meet and greet tickets, and how stoked I was to meet the band, watch the sound check. I talked about Chi and how cool it would have been to meet him. And the show was at First Ave, and my wife and I, well, she wasn't my wife yet, but we love First Ave. And we were just so excited to see Deftones, man. And wouldn't you know it? I won the contest. It was the only contest I ever won until Dia de los Deftones 2019. I was one of the Instagram winners. We got the VIP upgrade, got to meet the band and shit. That's another favorite memory, but I digress. I took that visit to the radio station, and it changed my life. Talking about Deftones changed my life. Now, fast forward to 2016, my boss came to me one day and he said, so Deftones are coming, and I need you to record an interview with Chino and Matt Pinfield. I was like, what? Didn't make any sense. But it did. At the time, Matt Pinfield was doing a show called 2 Hours, and it aired on our radio station. We worked for the same company, basically. So on August 16th, 2016, Deftones rolled into Minnesota for the Gore tour, and sometime in the middle of the day, I got a call at my desk that Chino Moreno was in the lobby waiting for me. What a trip, man. So I go get him, and I escort him all the way to the back of the building to an empty studio where he and I sit, just us. Matt Pinfield is patched in, and I got a front row seat to this amazing conversation with my favorite artist. It was surreal.
Tell me about when you started realizing that you wanted to be in music, that it was something that it became your immediate passion, and you wanted to actually play and write. Tell me about that.
Okay, so I could say I was maybe 14 years old or so. And at that time, I was like pretty much really engulfed in new wave music. And I'd heard some, I knew some heavy music. I had a lot of friends in my neighborhood that, would listen to like Slayer and other things too, and they would show me it. I didn't gravitate towards it so much as I did like the new wave music, but I knew about it. And Stefan, our guitar player, he grew up in my neighborhood as well. And I probably met him when I was maybe 10, 11 years old. He lived right across the street from one of my cousins that lived in my neighborhood. So I'd see him all the time, and he'd always be sitting out there on his porch with his guitar. He had long hair. He was a straight rocker guy. He would sit on his porch and just play his guitar all the time. So I would just go over there and talk to him all the time.
That night, I took my friend Brandon Morton to the show and the meet and greet beforehand. He and I worked at the radio station together briefly and hit it off over Deftones. I've said plenty of times on this podcast that before I started working at the radio station, I didn't know too many people who loved Deftones. And my wife, Jess, was nearing 8 months pregnant at the time with our oldest daughter, Marlo, so she wasn't going to the show with me. Not at 8 months. Although she did go to Dia de los Deftones in 2019 while she was like 5 or 6 months pregnant, which is bananas. But even though I hadn't talked to him in a while, I asked Brandon to go to the show with me. And the wildest fucking thing happened. At the meet and greet, Chino gave me the jacket off his back. It was like out of a movie. Like, I don't know, man. Wild. So now, as I close this chapter of my radio career, and again, not having kicked it with him in quite some time, I asked Brandon to listen to the Pinfield interview and relive that day with me. August 16th, 2016.
Well, first off, I had no idea that the song Chi by Gore was named after Chi from the Deftones, after the fact that it sounded like a bass line from Chi. No idea. I was like, Chi, that's a cool song. I have literally just thought it was a cool song for years with a cool name. Had no idea it had anything to do with Chi from the Deftones. So that was probably one of the coolest things I learned. I mean, it's dumb knowledge, and it's something I should know as a Deftones fan, but it was just cool hearing it.
It does make a lot of sense.
It's just those little things, man. I don't know. Super fun.
You're like, aha.
I literally had that. Holy shit. That makes sense. And it makes sense too, because like the way I used to discover old bands, the way I discovered Deftones was looking at liner notes on my favorite bands. They would thank their favorite artist.
Yeah.
So I had Life is Peachy. Actually, I think they had their self-titled album. I saw thanks to Deftones, Incubus, and all these other great bands, Cold Chamber and stuff like that. And I was like, well, Deftones, never heard of them. Boom, bought the album Adrenaline right away. And that's how I got hooked on Deftones, is from reading liner notes from Korn. That's something that I'm an old guy, but that's missing today, right? Like,
oh yeah. I mean, liner notes.
Dude,
big time.
Lyrics. I know lyrics to 0 songs from the past 10 years because I don't have a cassette or a CD note in front of me telling me what the lyrics are. I know nothing. Yeah.
I still don't know a lot of Deftones lyrics, and I know every sound. You know what I mean? But the lyrics are still like, don't know.
You start mindlessly singing along, and you're like, those weren't the words. Yeah. But I think I sounded like Chino for 5 seconds.
My head is something, my light is
scream.
How soon me gone? Because my popsy's hot. Got my blue backpack, my Walkman, and my bike. My friends are right there.
Dude, Back to School gets me every time. Back to School Mini Mag gets me every single time. A sip of vodka. And then I'm like, I don't know the rest of the part.
Why that quit? All that quit. Who ruined it? You did. Now grab a notebook and a pen. And then I'm like, start taking notes. Oh, shit, I should have took some notes because I don't know the words. Well, thank God that they still did that song, though, and that they because I have at least something to rap to anymore. You know how much I love rap music, and it's like.
I've got 2 versions of White Pony because of it. On the first album, first release, it wasn't on there. It was kind of a part of the last track, right? And then they re-released it or whatever, and it was an official track. And I got this mini version of a CD that came with that White Pony album.
Oh yeah, that's right, the little mini guy.
Yep.
I always wondered, like, was Mini Maggot had to do with like the mini CD? Was there a thing there? But I think I was just high. I don't think that has anything to do with it.
And I was pretty high too, and I got and never once put that disc in my drive because I had no idea how it worked. It wasn't even a circle; it had like straight sides onto it.
Yeah, I was like, what is that?
Yeah. So I missed all that.
I think it did work in a regular CD-ROM CD drive. Like it was the same because it would still like clip into the middle. You know what I mean?
That's why it had that mini little hole inside the thing, or like whatever.
I think.
Hey, kids, we're older. They used to have these things called CD-ROMs that came with discs every once in a while. It's pretty cool. Like you'd buy a CD and there'd be a CD-ROM feature that came with it. Yeah.
Bonus content.
Media.exe was the file name or something like that.
I can hear the hum of my computer now as it started firing up to figure out what I just put in there.
And 10 minutes later, you'll see it.
Yeah, and I was like, I can't wait. I still can't wait.
Fresh content on the way. Fresh content just in like another 10 minutes.
That's dope, though, that I didn't realize. I don't know if I knew that you discovered Deftones via Korn, which is obviously not unusual. Like, they're pretty inseparable. Were you totally taken away from Korn then and steered into Deftones, or were you still like into both?
No, 100% went the other direction with Deftones. Like, yeah. I respect Korn, love Korn. I mean, for what they did, they are what they are. But like, as soon as I heard Adrenaline and like, especially Be Quiet and Drive, it was over. I mean, it became, I don't know. It was a weird thing where you heard like a metal, quote unquote, new metal band have a singer that could sing, and then have Abe on drums, who by far is my favorite member of the Deftones. Just the little fills and stuff that he does is just, it was ridiculous. It sent me on a whole new course of music.
That's cool. Really? So like, what else do you think you got into because of Deftones?
Yeah. This is actually the funniest band I gotten from Duran Duran.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. I mean, as a kid, you heard Duran Duran. They were the pretty boys on MTV, and my mom liked them or whatever. And then I heard the Chauffeur, and I was like, whoa, wait up. These lyrics are great. Hold up. And I started listening to Duran Duran, and more specifically their lyrics. And I was like, they're actually a really good band. And Sade as well. I know that seems weird, but again, it was just like, oh, holy crap, I've never heard this before. These lyrics are amazing. And then, of course, the Deftones music on top of it makes it better. But like, yeah, I mean, those are two random ones. They seem obvious because of covers, but I don't know. They just led me down this weird trail of music where it's not just metal. It's not just rap. You can do kind of all these things or not and just do whatever. So, yeah.
One of my favorite things about Deftones is the music that they put me onto. I think that's an amazing thing. So it can't be understated. But with Duran Duran specifically, that came up in that Matt Pinfield interview, right? Do you remember when Pinfield was like, before they really got going, he was like, just a quick aside, I saw Duran Duran at some like on Broadway or some bullshit, and he was like, and they walked out to the Deftones version of Chauffeur, and Chino's like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, there was that say what moment. Like I wasn't there, you were there. I can imagine. Did his eyes light up? Like how did he react to hearing that?
Dude, I don't remember.
I mean, that's got to be insane.
I was sitting in that room the whole time with fucking stars in my eyes. I don't remember. The whole time I was sitting there going just like, my favorite, like literally my hero is 6 feet away from me, and he's telling the origin story of his band. Like, I can't get over this. Like, the whole thing was a blur. Actually, until a couple of days ago when I sent you the interview, I hadn't listened to it again. I hadn't listened to it in 5 years.
That's great. I mean, it makes sense, but that's crazy. And kind of that day with afterwards, after that happened, we got to see the show. It's one of my favorite memories ever. But like you said, you're almost starstruck. I've met a ton of people. You've met a ton of people. I was the first moment when I was like starstruck, when I was like standing in line and holding my little piece of paper to have Chino and the band sign. I was like, this is a thing? This is real. It's the only time in my life I've ever been starstruck by somebody.
Dude, I remember when we were on the drive out there and you were like, I'm not even like sweating this. Like, we don't need to do the meet and greet. Not even a big deal. Like, I don't really care. Like, I don't get impressed by celebrities. You're like, I'm not bothered by this. And then when we got there, and even after the fact, I feel like I remember you telling me like, holy shit, it's Deftones.
I did.
Fuck yeah, dude.
I tried to play it as cool as I could.
But I've got the picture over my shoulder. Do you see it?
Yes, I do. That's hilarious.
You were geeked. I was geeked. Look at me trying to play it cool. You were geeked, though. You
Dude.
stood right flat in the middle.
The
You
fact
were
that I'm even in the middle of this picture is mind-boggling to me. Like, dude, it was insane.
Who's higher, you or Steph? Because you both got 18-inch grins on your face. Talking about ear to ear. Both of you guys are cheesing like a motherfucker.
It was perfect. It was so funny. But we have to mention the greatest thing that happened right after that picture. You got something from the man himself. You got a jacket. You got this beautiful, awesome pullover jacket. I think
he's wearing it in this photo. He's wearing it in the photo.
He's wearing it. He gave that to you, dude.
I know, man. It was such a
is it like locked away in like
it's just in my closet. It's just in my closet. I don't wear it. I've worn it like maybe twice for 20 minutes at a time, like total. Like I don't wear it. In fact, I've thought about like framing it and putting it up, but then I can't smell it if it's behind glass. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll put a little like air hole in the bottom corner of this frame just so you can put your nose up to it.
Put like a tube in there so I can suck it up.
Scratch and sniff action.
My wife's like, honey, what are you doing? I'm just taking hits off of this chino jacket.
I've never felt better.
Yeah, dude, that was fucking insane. I mean, the day was insane. Like at one point when he was there to do the Pinfield interview, which also was just insane. Like Matt Pinfield.
Me and you both bonded over Matt Pinfield when we first met each other.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we both agreed, like, as an interviewer of music, that's kind of where you want to be. That's the mecca.
He's just got such a Rolodex of like information and like facts that seem to fucking fill in the space that or make the guest like go like, oh, that's dope. You know what I mean? Like it's
and having a rapport with people like he does, it's like,
yeah,
they're probably not friends in real life. Yeah. But there's still that friendly vibe. It's like, oh, we know each other. I can open up to you. You know, you're not just another dude on FM radio DJ asking me questions. You're just a guy asking me questions. So I think, I mean, it opens them up a little bit.
Yeah, truly. I mean, that's how he started the conversation, was with that personal anecdote about St. Louis. He's like, Chino, remember the time that we were in St. Louis and I don't know what festival it was, but they were
By the way, side gig. Matt Pinfield impersonator. I know it's a heavy market.
Never done it before. This is literally the debut of my Matt Pin. Chino, man, I don't know, man. It was just, they were like, you don't have to introduce any other bands. He was like, I'm gonna introduce Deftones. The shit was fucking fire though, because he clearly recognized game, and he was. I feel like Pinfield. I really want. Not that having you in this episode is not totally fulfilling, but
yeah, I get it.
It would be great if we could also get Pinfield on this shit, because don't you want to ask him about like that rant at the end of the Nookie album or shit like that? You know what I mean? Like that dude was partying with these guys back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Like Pinfield was in the shit.
It was such a crazy time to be in a job like his too, right? You could actually literally hang out with the band. You could actually be kind of a part of the whole mess that's going on. Nowadays, everybody's got people, they shuffle them through whatever, they go from A to B, and there's no hangout time. Back in the day, dude, he took full advantage of just talking to the bands and then interview them later, but he talked to them first. That access it's amazing. I mean, who else has that?
Well, and bands don't linger that long. You don't fucking drop a record that moves some units or that gets some streams. If you don't bring downloads and streams to the table, you don't even fucking get on a label anymore. You know what I mean? Like you got to bring your YouTube following to the label to get some attention.
I mean, that says a whole lot to the fact that Deftones are signed to Maverick. Even they got Madonna's label on their back, which is nuts. But it's in the interview. It's kind of where Chino mentions that we had this freedom to do whatever we wanted, basically, right? Like we could experiment. The label didn't care. This was just a great time where, you know, after Adrenaline came out, Around the Fur, the fact that Around the Fur was kind of completely different, but the same as Adrenaline. And then they go on to White Pony. they actually had time to experiment with the label. Nowadays, they're like, you can't do that. That's not radio friendly. We don't like that. They guide you a little bit more. But it seemed like back then, I'm so old. Seemed like back then they actually allowed that sort of a thing and artistic freedom. And again, that comes with hanging out with people afterwards and all that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. The money really facilitated a lot for bands, and not just to be artistic and push boundaries or whatever, especially at a label that was, small label like Maverick, but just for artists to grow. I mean, some of these songs from Adrenaline are fucking 30 years old now. Like they were kids. He even says so in that interview with Pinfield. Like I was 15 or 16 when I wrote some of those songs. So you got to have something else, bring something else to the table now to get that space to flourish and to be to grow, just to grow. It's not the same. And over that time, it makes sense that, you'd see the same face over and over again. Pinfield's pretty distinct guy, plus MTV, the MTV angle of things, which is really cool to think about that FaceTime and how much more he really, 120 minutes was the cool show.
It was. It expanded everything from metal to alternative rock to weird pop stuff, like the Dandy Warhols or whatever. Like 120 minutes was, I would stay. It was like on an 11 p.m. in Minnesota time or something like that or whatever. I would stay up and watch that, and then I'd watch MTV Amp after that, which is a weird collection of electronic stuff. But yeah, like I was hooked on that. It was Matt Pinfield, that he was a normal dude asking my favorite people questions. He'd just sit down, hang out, and talk with them.
Yeah, man. And that's totally what that felt like. And it was just such an unreal. I'll forever be grateful to Derek at 93X for hooking me up to, that week was the best week of radio ever. That was 2 days before Metallica opened US Bank Stadium. And that same week, they world premiered Hardwired to Self-Destruct, like on the air while Pablo was out there at Metallica headquarters. So he was sort of, I think, out of the equation, which I think I probably would have got first crack at Deftones or doing anything Deftones. He was there, in fact, that day. Pablo was there, but ordinarily, like, he would get like the first run at whoever was going to be at an interview or whatever. But this wasn't an interview. So Derek was just like, hey, we need somebody to record a conversation with Chino and Matt Pinfield. And I was like, excuse me?
Wait, these two people on my lexicon of people to meet? Okay, I guess.
It's like what? So I don't have the pressure of like coming up with questions, because the first time that I did that, it fucking bombed. Like my interview at Knotfest was not great. It was memorable for a lot of reasons, but it's not an interview that I was proud of. You know what I mean? Rookie DJ shit, but just to be able to sit in a room and listen to two guys have a fucking conversation, and one guy asking genuine, like, inquisitive questions, and peppering in a couple of DJ questions in there, but mostly just asking about the guys and their life, and hearing how Chino responded to that and was so ready to like give him the whole narrative of their story. And like he told the whole fucking story of the band up to 2016. I mean, it was just like, how am I in the room for this?
I know. Well, and then you're in the room for like, I've heard a lot of the mystery around Chi. And then you actually got to hear Chino open up about it and actually tell the story of how the band had, like, they're put in this moment, right? They're just about to write this amazing album. And then, it happened. And he discussed the process that they went through to make things okay, I guess, if you want to put it in words. And it was super interesting. Like, again, I've read bits and pieces, but I didn't know the actual history behind it, and the fact that he opened up and was willing to talk about it was cool to me. It was, in a weird way, as a fan, not a sense of closure, but as a fan, kind of a sense of closure. Like, I was like, oh, this is how the band went about that process. This is how Sergio came into the group, and oh, that makes total sense. And it was one of those cool parts of the interview that you don't normally get to hear rock stars or famous people talk about.
And doesn't it didn't it take you back to that time? And I'm always, when I think about the time around the Eros recording and Cheese accident, really as far back, I think about Saturday Night Wrist, and this overwhelming feeling of, is this gonna last? Like, is my favorite band done? Like, I really felt like everything, I don't know, from about 2004, 2005 ish until Diamond Eyes came out, which was in 2010. I mean, I really didn't know if my favorite band was going to exist for much longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I was 100% in the same boat. I mean, bass style alone, just his screams and his energy that he brought to it, irreplaceable. It's not even possible. And then hearing about the fact that he was such a good dude with a smile on his face always. I think about actually when I heard Pinfield talking about that and Chino talking about that, I thought about their unplugged bit that they did in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Where you got, you know what I mean? And like you got to see them kind of in their element and see them kind of be people. Hell yeah, dude. That's beautiful. I got that.
Got the DVD on the bookshelf behind me. I don't have a DVD player. Well, I guess the laptop probably do that. I think laptops still play DVD.
Remember those CD-ROM drives we were talking about earlier? No. But I got that same DVD, but watching it, you can actually see like the people as they were, right? You can see Stefan being kind of just that guy that's just chill, that plays, right? And then you can see Abe doing his percussion, which wasn't drums, which is super weird. And you can kind of see he's in his element. Chino's voice sounds as good as it's ever going to sound. But then you see Chi on bass and you're like, man, that dude looks super happy. He looked like he was in his element. He looked like, I don't know, he just seemed like, again, I'm just a guy, but he just seemed like a good person. And you could see that in all the footage. And that was actually like the weird first footage I ever seen of the band that wasn't concert footage, right? Where you got to see the in-between scenes on that DVD and stuff like that of them walking around. Like that was kind of my opening up to their individual personalities. It didn't dive deep into
it. Might be mine too now that you mention it. I mean, everything to that point, was probably the 5 YouTube videos that were out at that time. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Now, when did this come out?
Jeez. I don't even know.
It's got to be here somewhere. Get my glasses out. Yeah, dude, the fucking performance of the Boys Republic on this guy, on this Live in Hawaii.
It's so good. And scenery alone, they just sound amazing.
2002.
2002. See, okay.
So it might have been filmed 2001, maybe.
Makes perfect sense. But it was the first time you got to kind of like see the band in between songs and stuff like that. It was so cool to me. So yeah.
I love that DVD, and it's
so good.
Like, if that's my favorite version of the Boys Republic, like far and away, it's not even close. That shit needs to be. I was bummed when that wasn't on the B-sides and rarities release, because I was like, how is that kick-ass version of the Boys Republic not easy? Like, I should just be able to play it in my car whenever I want. You know what I mean? Like, that shit is.
Well, and I mean, dude, digital bath and knife. I mean, I don't know. It was such a good bit.
I think 1 week is on here. Yeah. Yep. 1 week is on here. Yeah, that shit.
One week was the non-acoustic version of it. So that's one of the songs where they switched in between, right? They went from acoustic,
which was weird at times.
Yeah, it was weird at the time. I'll be honest with you. Not what I would do as a director.
You know what else was weird? Frank, like, just chilling in the cut for most of those acoustic joints. Like,
Frank just became mysteriously a band member right around that time.
Well, actually, so my understanding is that he was always a band member, but until the band like could afford to take him out on tour and shit, like, it just didn't make a ton of sense for him to be like, for them to pay to like haul his shit, you know what I mean? Or like to have another person try. At least that's my understanding. I don't know how real that is, but I'm pretty sure he was always in the band.
Okay. See, and that's one of those things. Like, I knew he was a part of some of their live bits before, but that's all I knew of him. So my first experience.
That's the thing that I really want to dig into more. Hopefully this podcast will get to continue, and eventually I'll get to interview Frank or something and find out how and when and exactly under what circumstances it was like, all right, no, you were in the band, because maybe they didn't have that moment, but I feel like at some point he had to start getting to check.
Right. Well, and now he's the band photographer, basically. If you look at their Instagram or anything else, it's all Frank. So,
and it shit's hot, and
Yeah, dude.
especially on a new album, like the shit that he's doing is. Well, we'll get into that, and hopefully we'll have a little time to get into the new album. But so there was something that you said before the before this conversation that was pretty funny to me. You were like, "Yeah, I could tell by the end Chino wanted to get the fuck out of there."
Well, as a person that listens to people talk all day, that's literally my job, is just to listen to people talk and edit. Like, you can tell at a certain point, first off, give that guy some water. I could tell he needed some water by the end of that interview. Talked a lot. But like,
I know he's like, I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, you could just hear it, right? That's an audio guy.
I want to say I offered him. I want to say I did. I offered him. I was like, "Yo, can I get you any water or something?" Because I had to take him to the bathroom at one point, which is a really funny thing to say. I had to take Chino to the bathroom.
Defining moment in my life.
Well, you know that building. That building is a maze.
It's confusing, dude.
And if I would have just, so I had to like linger outside of the bathroom. You know what I mean? It's so fucked up to say. I don't know why.
That before too to other guests.
You're like, all right, you ready to go? Okay, it's this way.
By the way, it took you 1 minute and 15 seconds. Just saying. I know a lot more about you than you want me to know.
You did not wash your hands, and I could hear that.
But no, like by the end of the interview, and I love Matt Pinfield, and we just declared our love for him before, but by the end of it, it was kind of like, he's like, all right, I kind of want to move on. I kind of want to go. And then Matt was like, hey, we got to hook up. We got to do this and that. And he's like, okay, here's the phone number, blah, blah. And you could just tell he's like, all right, I thought I was supposed to do an interview. I'm done. And then the producer guy, my job, comes in, is like, hey, can you read some liners? No, it's not that. It's pronounced this and that. And you could just tell by the end of it, he's just like, fuck, this is my job. I got to do this shit. And I can sympathize, because I totally understand. We've been through the drill with a bunch of musicians and artists and people before we do the same bit. Mm-hmm. But you could just, he was so happy to do the interview. You could hear like he was cool, like, oh, hey, it's Pinfield again. They talked about old shit. But like everybody, you've got a time limit and you just want to get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out of there.
And he was like, hey, man, I'm done. I got to go.
Yeah.
Can you read the second liner for us? Nah, I don't got time for that.
Yeah, there was, I'm trying to remember who has said no, because I think that there was, Serge Tankian said no, asked him for a liner.
Good.
And it was so cool the way he did it. He was like the nicest fucking guy about it. He was like, hey man, I really appreciate you interviewing and taking the time and this is really great and everything, but I don't do that because it really, to me, it sounds like I'm advertising over my music, and that's not okay with me. I don't want to do that. I don't want to put advertisements on my music. So
brilliant.
And absolutely, I was like, brilliant. Dude, you're the fucking shit. I was like, you're Serge. You can say fucking no all day long. And I feel like Chino could probably also say no and be cool. But I think he's just fucking a really nice guy. Like, I think that they're all really just the coolest guys. And that's one of the things that I know that's a fucking obvious thing to say for the fucking host of a Deftones podcast. Be like, I think they're really cool guys. I think that they're all fucking really nice guys. You know what I mean? And that they genuinely want to do the thing and make everybody happy, and especially when it comes to business. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to the business shit.
Yeah, well, but they add that personal touch again, where Chino gave you his jacket. There's that personal touch. So obviously they're good people, right? Obviously they're good dudes. And you don't get to see that a lot on the media side of things. You just get to see the generic, oh, yeah, this is where we started. This is where we're at now, sort of a bit. And the interview with Pinfield, you could tell, again, where it was more of that genuine thing. And he seems like a good guy. And he gave you his jacket.
I know, dude. So do you remember like how that went down? Like we walked through the line and he's wearing the jacket, but we had already been to the merch stand because we were in the building first for that meet and greet. And there was no there for the meet and greet. There were like fucking,
it's like 15, 20 people total. And yeah, it's like 15 people. And like half of them 50, were significant others of the person that was actually wanted
or
to be
radio
there.
Station employees. I feel like there was 6 radio people and like 6 others is what it felt like. There was nobody there. But remember, it fucking rained. It was a torrential. I remember the clouds as we were the storm clouds as we were driving out to the venue, and they were like golden. They were these huge, like the sky was unusual. Like it was really a torrential downpour. And then we got inside the building and there was fucking nobody there.
Yeah.
It was nobody there.
You're missing one step, the Pizza Ranch step, but that's okay.
Oh shit, we did go to Pizza Ranch.
We ate at Pizza Ranch right across the street from Myth right before we went into that. But by the way,
that was a very forgettable pizza. I'll put that out there.
I mean,
that place sucks.
When you smoke and then you eat and then you smoke again, the pizza tends to go on the wayside.
It does.
But no, I remember the same thing as you. It's like it was weird to be in the building and got to see the old radio, folks that we knew and stuff like that. But that was kind of it. There was like literally 5 fans. And the coolest part about the band is they were cool about it. Like it was just fine. Nobody was in a rush to get anywhere. I mean, I know they had to do their own shit. I get that. But it didn't seem like, we've been to multiple autograph signings and stuff with bands and people where they're just like, fuck it, right? And it didn't seem like that with them at all. Like they would actually make, and all right, I mean,
the whole band was there. Like for a lot of those things, you might get a couple of guys.
Right. Yeah. And maybe it's a fanboy in me, but like they actually would make eye contact and have a little bit of a conversation as they were doing their bit. It wasn't just, here's the paper, sign it, move on. Here's the paper, sign it, move on. And I don't remember because it's kind of a blur just when you're in that situation. But I think I asked even Abe a question or something. Don't remember. With all honesty, but the fact that I think I asked him a question and I think he answered it is in my brain to this day. Is yeah, memory's great.
Again, the weed before Pizza Ranch, after Pizza Ranch,
and maybe after the show.
Maybe after the yeah, probably during But I do remember we were like however many people went through, it was 6-10 people maybe. We were the last photo, so that was it. And I feel like that might have played to my favor with respect to the jacket, because that was it. Like they were done after that. They could go and do whatever they had to do. Obviously Chino was done being out in the rain or whatever, because it's not like it was his jacket. It was a merch table jacket. And I do love people in the merch table and that we got to do that in advance, so that we had the foresight to like, let's go peep the merch table before we go upstairs. All of those things definitely, while they were small and seemingly insignificant, they all played into him pulling that shit over his head and handing it to me. I mean, dude, okay, I'm gonna recount it to my
day.
It was a hot and humid, stormy day in St. Paul. But so we go through the line just to, I might tell this story 3 or 4 more hundred times in my life. So I'm going to indulge myself one more time. So we're going through the line, shaking hands, and I see Chino with the jacket on that we had just seen downstairs. And I'm like, yo, Chino, you're rocking my jacket, man. That's what's up. And obviously we had had the time before with Pin.
You led him to the bathroom. Yeah.
I led him to the can. Made for some. So actually, here's a fun part of that day. So the 2 Hours people wanted a photo of Chino, and it was like his name on a piece of paper, like it said Chino, right? So the dude stands up to the wall and is like holding this paper like he was getting his mugshot taken. So I'm like, and he's not smiling. I mean, so I have a photo that I took with him that afternoon. He's not a smiling fellow, right?
Right.
Like this is his happy face. No, I've got some smiling Chino photos here. But the one that we took before that probably has to deal with why he wasn't so smiling, because he was like holding this paper under his chin with his name, like Chino in 2 hours or whatever. And then after I take that photo, I'm like, all right, turn to the side. And he didn't get it, or maybe it wasn't clear. Like it felt like a mugshot. It felt like he was at county. I don't know. So at any rate, like I was jokey all day or some shit. I don't know. But then like just having those engagements for that first half of the day, and then being like comfortable enough to be like, yo, you got my jacket. And then when we walk away after the picture, and he's like, yo, Wood. And I turn around and he's fucking pulling that shit over his head, dude. I about died. I about damn died.
It was like the first time I experienced, like how you see those old movies of big rock stars and all the fans clamor around them, and one of them just tosses something like a handkerchief to the fan, and they all clamor over it and they're super happy. It was like that weird moment where I was just looking at him like, oh my god, he's getting a thing, he's getting a jacket. It was such a bizarre experience to watch. Like, it was such a personal thing too. Again, you're right. Whatever, maybe have been a merch table jacket. Who gives a shit? It's still his jacket that he was wearing, pulled off himself to give you.
I was floating.
Unreal.
And I said to him, I was like, this is hero shit, dog. This is hero shit. You're my hero.
And then we had the best, they're not seats, but best place in the house to watch that show.
Yes.
We were like right on the right side of the stage or whatever while it was going on, but elevated kind of above the crowd. So we were at stage level. And at the end of it, I got the greatest picture of my entire life when Chino was screaming right in my face.
I never
pull out a camera. I didn't even the entire show. That's the only picture I took, the only picture, and it's of him screaming in my face, basically on the final note of 1 week. It's like the craziest experience of my life.
Yeah, dude, that shit was. I remember being like, oh my god, I genuinely, even thinking about it now, I'm like, oh my god, because that whole show, and at this point, after having done this podcast for a while, I'm sort of convinced that they were in a real rhythm, in a real groove at that time. Late summer 2016, they had been touring for a little while. I've talked to several people who have been to shows within a week of the one that we went to, and everybody says the same greatest show I've ever been to. Like, so great, unbelievable, beyond imagination, such a great show. I mean, I can't even remember. Was there an opener at that show? I don't think there was. I think it was just them, right?
I honestly don't remember.
I don't remember.
I literally don't remember. I don't think there was an opener at that show, to be honest with you. And if there was, I'm sure they're a great band, but I have no idea who they were.
Yeah, I'm sure they were really fine. They were a fine and good
people. And the first time I ever saw Deftones was at Jingle Ball 93X. I think it was like 99 or 2000 or something like that. And the lineup was I think it was Papa Roach. It was
Incubus.
Taproot. Yeah, and Incubus. Yeah. That was
Papa
the first
Roach had a 30-minute set that night.
Right.
Papa Roach played for half a fucking hour, dude.
Incubus, I think he only played for like 45. It was some crazy. Taproot did 3 songs or 4 songs or whatever. It was before they became bigger. It was one of the great. It's the first time I body surfed at a concert.
No way, really?
Oh, Deftones, hoist me up.
Yeah.
It's cool until they drop you over the barrier, but whatever. Still a great experience.
Some of you got to learn the hard way. Some of you just have to learn the hard way. Figure out where your feet are.
Comparing those shows, they were both great, but there is a difference between the two, right? Back then, it was that more hardcore, hard rock, just get the crowd going. And then when we saw them at Myth, several years later, it was a band that was polished. It was a band that understood what being a band was like. It was more of a show the second time we saw, not second time, but at the Myth show. So it's kind of cool to watch that evolution of the band, right? Seeing them back in the day when they were old school, hardcore, kind of gritty, and then seeing them with melodic songs, with an actual stage presence, with some actual lights and stuff like that. It was just kind of a really cool thing. But in all the performances I've seen the Deftones, which has been like 4 or 5 times live, I've never been disappointed. And this is, again, I'm a fan, so obviously I'm going to talk high on them. But I've seen some really shitty concerts in my day by bands that I've really respected.
Yeah.
Probably more than I'd like to admit. And I've not had that from them. I've not felt, and I'm sure people have on other legs of tours. I get that. But at least here in Minnesota, I've never felt that they weren't giving it that generic 100% or whatever. Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm all over the board, but they're a cool band in that sense.
Yeah.
I just was never disappointed by seeing them live.
Yeah, man. No, 1,000%. And I love that you bring up that comparison. That's something that I am fascinated by, is their ability to still somehow be intense, but not have to, hurl themselves off of the stage or like, I mean, Chino still gets in the crowd and all of those things, but yeah, I mean, they're obviously they're dudes in their 50s. So it's
so weird. Say that again.
I know, right? And that's weird.
That's so bizarre to even hear.
It's a trip.
Random side note, and again, I'm all over. I grew a goatee because Chino had a goatee. I was like, oh damn, dude, I'm gonna grow a goatee.
Bro, I'm pretty sure when I met you, we both had the fucking Chino chin. And I was like, wait a minute. You are my brother. I knew this shit. I heard you like Deftones, but now I know that shit. Like that
had to, dude.
I remember that's how Pablo got us to like, he was like, oh, yeah, you'd like him, dude. He likes Deftones. I was like, oh, for real?
It's funny too, because that is honestly like our jumping point of knowing each other, right? Is Deftones. And then we expanded onto, all the other bands that we just play way too loud in the studio after hours, which is one of my favorite parts of that job. But yeah.
Yeah, totally. Some fun times. And I'm really glad that we got to consummate our Deftones friendship in August of 16.
I'm forever grateful. The fact that you're like, hey, there's a meet and greet at the Deftones. You want to come with? I'm like, yeah, no, I guess. Like, the fact that you even offered me to do it, I was like, all right, I'm indebted for him forever. This sucks.
No, man, not at all. If anything, it was you doing me a huge favor because I have never had a friend who loved Deftones like I did until I met you. I didn't know anybody who, oh shit, I'm gonna get all emotional.
No, just so too. We're good.
But it was really special that we got to bond over that and then have this fucking, like this show, like I've seen a lot of amazing Deftones shows, but August 16th of 16 was, and not, I mean, everything that led up to the show itself was fucking beyond compare, but the show itself was top of the list. Like it's that great. It was an amazing show, and it's really fucking cool that we got to do that together. You know what I mean? That's fucking rad.
That 90 plus minutes or whatever it was is just it's a moment in weird time that like actually happened. Again, starstruckness. I was like, I'm gonna be cool. But then like to meet your favorite band, you're like, oh, never mind. I'm gonna throw that out the window. And the fact that we got to do it together after bonding and that we both did like that little kid thing where we looked at each other. We're like, oh, we just. It was so dumb. It was great. It was the best.
Yeah, you can try to play it as cool as you can, but you will never be as cool as the motherfucking Deftones.
It's just not possible. It's just not possible. Just not.
Huge thanks to my friend Brandon Morton for reliving one of the best days of my life with me, and to you for indulging me this one episode to tell one of my own Deftones stories. My name is Woody. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Woodbruh, WOODBRUH. Hit me up. Thank you for listening to Deftones. Thank you for listening to Change in the House of Pods. spitting the bong. It's all good. Call back later. Oh, yeah. I do think I'm a rapper.
Chino from the Deftones. Chino, how are you, man?
Oh, I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm good. You know, it's good to catch up with you. I haven't seen you in a long time. Of course, I've been following everything you've been doing, and but it's really great to catch up with you again and be able to talk to you
For sure,
about
man.
music. You know, man,
Yes,
like
sir.
it's really when I think back about playing stuff off Adrenaline for the first time. You
Yes.
know, on MTV, and then
Yeah.
one of my favorite moments was I think we were in St. Louis.
Yes, sir. I know.
And
I remember that.
Do you remember when I they were like, dude, you only have to introduce bands on the main stage, and I went, no, I'm going to introduce the Deftones.
I
So I
did.
went like, remember that?
Yeah, it was like way in
you
the
know,
parking lot. I remember that. I remember that distinctively. I mean, and I remember having a great conversation with you that day. To us, I mean, we were so happy to have you kind of support us. Even back as early on as then, '95, I think that was maybe '96, but it was pretty early on in our career, and I thought it was awesome. I mean, obviously, growing up being a big fan of alternative music in general, and 120 minutes, and just like I don't know, we felt really special that you chose to do that day. It was awesome.
yeah, it was funny because as I was walking through that side thing to come to the other side, people were like, there were some people going absolutely mad, like jumping over. There were huge fans of people that had just discovered you,
Yeah.
and then other people that had, of course, watched the shows, and it was a great feeling. And of course, our friendship has lasted since then,
Right on.
which I think is which
No,
is
it's
so
crazy, man.
cool.
You have a really good memory. I noticed that about you. I mean, the fact that you remember all this, I mean, that we're talking about right now, but then I hear like a lot of your stories and stuff you tell, and it's like, man, you have a very distinct, great memory. I like to surround myself with people like that, because you get to hear the good stuff, and it's like it's before everybody was running around with their selfie cams and their video, their phones and stuff like that, and those experiences are they kind of live in your head, and it's good to talk to people from that time and still now. It's great.
Yeah, it's great. So Chino, let's go back to talking about when the band originally formed in Sacramento.
Sure.
In those really early days. And one of the things that I, always loved, and I just have to say this, was I knew you loved Duran Duran and a ton of other bands. The Cure,
Yes.
there were so many people you loved.
Yes.
You also loved, there were certain metal bands you loved. You loved everything across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to quickly say, one of the coolest things that I saw on Broadway was Duran Duran walking on stage to your version of The Chauffeur.
No
You
way.
know?
What do you mean? What was this?
Did you know this?
No,
I
what
don't know if
happened? No,
No, Duran Duran played the Deftones version of The Chauffeur.
no way.
They played your version as their entrance music to go on stage when they did that thing on Broadway.
That is so
was-
awesome.
Isn't that cool?
No, I mean
Like-
that blows me away. It's so crazy. I mean, see, for me, I was into music since I was a little kid. I mean, and I liked everything that that I heard on the radio from Casey and the Sunshine Band, whatever it was when I was I'm talking like a little kid, like 3 or 4 years old. I can stick that-
everything. You're
I
a
have
sponge, right?
Yes, I had memories of that young, just like being into music. But as I had an older sister, so as I got older until like 5th and 6th grade. My sister was a couple years older than me, and that was sort of on the brink of like new wave and stuff like that. So, she showed me so much music from like Thompson Twins. Like she'd buy me cassettes for any gift that she can give me. She'd give me music. So back then it was cassettes. So she showed me Depeche Mode, Thompson Twins. She was a big Duran Duran fan, and it was one of those things where like it wasn't, I guess, so cool for boys to like Duran Duran back then, especially it was more or less sort of, they were, I guess, kind of like a boy band, I guess, in a way, you know what I mean? But to me,
Yeah, they became one. First, they started as like this kind of cool new wave.
yes, I mean,
exactly.
no,
You
but
know
I mean, even now, it's like some of their influences, like I get like listening to like bands like Japan and just some stuff that I'm like, wow, this is sort of where Duran Duran found their sound. And plus, they're great musicians. I mean, that's one thing that like to this day you cannot take away from that band. They were brilliant musicians, but they just so happened to be good looking, and all the girls loved them. So I kind of was like a secret fan. I mean, I wasn't embarrassed to like them, but I wasn't as vocal about how much I liked them because of that. Because I was a boy and they didn't have that many boy fans. But through the years, I just like, it's just undeniable, and I was very lucky to be exposed to just so much, especially like British music and music that wasn't on the radio as much at that time from my older sister. So I always had a really open mind and as far as like just I liked what I liked, you know what I mean, and I couldn't help it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to. And, I'll tell you quickly. I saw the Rio tour in a ballroom in New Jersey.
Wow.
And they were phenomenal.
I
It was
believe
them
it.
and B Movie.
I
Remember
can
that song, Nowhere Girl? You might have heard it, in the 80s.
Okay.
Or heard it later. But they were so good. So, so tell me about when you started realizing that you wanted to be in music, that it was something that it became your immediate passion, and you wanted to actually play and write. Tell me about that.
Okay, so I could say I was maybe 14, 14 years old or so. And at that time, I was like pretty much really engulfed in new wave music, and I'd heard some, I knew some heavy music. I had a lot of friends in my neighborhood that would listen to like Slayer and other things too, and they would show me it. I didn't gravitate towards it so much as I did like the new wave music, but I knew about it. And Stefan, our guitar player, he grew up in my neighborhood as well. And I probably met him when I was maybe 10, 11 years old. He lived right across the street from one of my cousins that lived in my neighborhood. So I'd see him all the time, and he'd always be sitting out there on his porch with his guitar. He had long hair. He was a straight rocker guy. He would sit on his porch and just play his guitar all the time. So I would just go over there and talk to him all the time. And he also skateboarded, so like I'd see him when we were skateboarding around town, whatever. But he also had a garage full of gear. When he was 16 years old, he had gotten hit by a car on a skateboard by a drunk driver, and he broke his leg, and he was in the hospital for a long time. But he got a settlement, which was I don't know exactly how much money it was, but it was enough money for like a 16-year-old kid. A lot of money for a 16-year-old kid to have at that point where, so he just filled his garage up with like a full on like band rehearsal spot, basically. He had a huge Tama drum kit in there. He had like, these full rack, basically it was like he had like Metallica's setup. He bought some of James Hetfield's like signature model guitars. Like so he had, as a 16-year-old kid, he had everything that he could ever want. You know what I mean? Music wise. So, but I mean, even still, it wasn't that he was like, that great of a guitar player. He had all this gear, and everybody from the neighborhood sort of gravitated over to his house because he was like the kid with all the toys. So, yeah, I'd be hanging out over there all the time, and I really wanted to play the drums. So I'd go over there and just like jam with him. He'd play guitar and I'd play the drums, and we would just, basically make racket. But, to me, it was so fun. But then what happened was one day I brought Abe over, and Abe was my friend from junior high school. By this time we were in high school. I believe we were freshmen or sophomore in high school. And one day after school, I was like, you got to meet my friend Stefan. He's got all this gear in his garage. Let's go over there and jam. So he came with me after school one day, and he got behind the drum kit. And Stefan heard him play, and Abe's been playing drums since he was a little kid. I mean, so he just like slayed on the kit, and like at that point, I was pretty much out of a job. As far as being the drummer in the band, we were sort of nonchalantly starting, and so like a couple days later, I saw Abe at school. And he was like, yo, me and Stefan been playing every day after school. We wrote like 3 songs already. I was like, oh, awesome, man. But even though I was really kind of bummed because I was like, I wanted to, be in that band. And he's like, yeah, but Stefan says he wants you to be the singer. And I was like, what? I was like, I can't, I don't know how to sing. He's like, yo, man, you sing all the time. Because at that time, I mean, I was really into to the Smiths and Morrissey, really. Actually, Morrissey's first solo record just came out. And I'd walk around like singing that stuff like in the halls at school, and everybody kind of knew that, like, whatever. I guess that I was just like I wasn't really shy either for some reason. I was just like, I'd walk around and I would just sing. And that was like one of my favorite artists. So he's like, yo, man, you sing Morrissey stuff all the time. Just come in and whatever. So it was that simple. I went in there one day after school. Me and Abe both went together after school, and we played together, and it was horrible, but we didn't care. We were just sort of learning, and from that point, I mean, we spent, and also then the band kind of rounded out with Dominic, our friend who we'd known since elementary school, and he playing bass, and so yeah, we started writing songs at that moment. They were pretty terrible. It was mostly about like, songs about food and things like, just silly teenage kind of humor. But it was like, it was neat. And we didn't really have any, like, all these huge goals or ambitions, like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do. It was like, it was strictly just for fun. And I think that was a big catalyst for us continuing to do it, because there wasn't, it was before YouTube and everything. So it's not like we weren't trying to film ourselves and show people. I mean, we really didn't leave the garage for almost a whole year. I mean, we didn't play our first show until like after we were a band for about a year in the garage, just playing to ourselves. And then our first show was at like a backyard barbecue in front of our friends, you know what I mean? So we never really felt like we were thrusted out and we had to choose what style we were going to play or this or that, whatever. It was just like really, just like it happened very organically. And our sound sort of, I guess, is sort of, I mean, it kind of shows because, I mean, at the time, obviously I was showing them bands like Depeche Mode and all this other stuff, and they were showing me metal stuff, whatever. And at no point did either one of us try to conform to the other. We just sort of did what we knew how to do best and kind of made music out of that, so it kind of had its own thing from the beginning.
When did you learn like that you could scream like that and just put that power behind your voice? Because you can sing.
Yeah.
Like I love when I mean there's so many songs by the band I've loved for so long, whether it's Digital Bath or I can go through a list of things I love that you've done.
Right on.
But when did you realize? When did you first start screaming?
So yeah, I mean that was pretty much by default. I mean, honestly, when I first started singing, I couldn't sing that well at all. I mean, like I knew that I can sing in tune, but I just wasn't that good. I mean, I just needed to practice. So because I couldn't sing that well, I would scream, especially when the music kind of called for it. I mean, some of the riffs and stuff that they were writing early on were like pretty aggressive. And then also, I mean, I was young, and I think when all boys are that age or coming of age, 15, 16 years old, I kind of had that, like, I don't want to say a chip on my shoulder, but I kind of felt like, sort of like it's us against the world is out to get us. And like, so like that aggression that was sort of like a bigger part, I guess, of like, of our sound, early on. So if you listen to records like Adrenaline and Around the Fur, our first two records, there's a lot more of that, I guess, childhood, teenage angst, I guess, whatever it was. And it was just a natural thing. So it was me reacting to the music, whatever. And then as I started to hone, like, I guess, or find my voice a little bit more, I started like sneaking it in more. So like, once we did like the White Pony record. Well, yeah, the 7 Words, the first record was obviously a lot more, like I said, a lot more of the rest stuff. But like from Around the Fur, I started to sneak more of it in there. And then obviously with White Pony, I felt like I was spreading my wings a lot more and just like using my voice more as an instrument and trying different things than just, being pissed off all the time. And to be honest, at that point, I wasn't as pissed off as I was when I was, by the time White Pony came out, that was 2099, we started writing it. So I was already, in my 20s or whatever. And I wasn't as, I wasn't like a little young. I mean, some of the songs on Adrenaline were written when I was 16 years old, then the record came out later on. So yeah, it's pretty, it's kind of a trip to think about that, that I was that young when I, wrote some of this stuff. And, it came from a true place, I guess, back then, you know what I mean? And I could still.
When you wrote Bored. And,
for sure. I mean, it's like total teenage, you're in your bedroom and, it's just like, this is what you think about. And that's what it was, it was pretty organic to its time frame.
And there was a beauty, I mean, when Around the Fur came out next, right? And
yes.
there were, My Own Summer, but you're talking about that. There was an experimental vibe to Be Quiet and Drive Far Away and songs like that. Vocally, what you were doing, but just song arrangements and stuff. Mm-hmm. And was that, I mean, for you, that was you experimenting with your voice then, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just as a band in general. I mean, we, I think our thought process was the Adrenaline record for what it was at that point. It's still like, because some of those songs were so old by the time we actually put that record out. I mean, that record came out in 95, I think. And
yes.
But like, yeah, some of those songs were like 4 or 5 years old that were on that record. So by the time we got a chance to make a second record, we were so happy and we felt like we were such I mean, that we were a different band in a way. We've grown so much that we really wanted to just like, and even though it was successful, we were successful with Adrenaline. It's like we didn't like feel comfortable, like just, okay, well, let's just do this again and, make another sort of quote unquote, like, rap rock record or whatever, you know what I mean? A record that's, even though obviously those were some of our influences, I think we really wanted to just expand on like what we had learned and where we were at that point in our lives. And we got a chance to do it, and so I think we weren't even scared. It wasn't like, we've heard so many stories about like sophomore jinx and all this stuff. And I think we were just so excited that we got a chance to make a second record that we just didn't care. We just did exactly where our minds and hearts were at that moment. And it worked, and then, not to jump too far, but with White Pony, we did that same exact thing, except even expanded more, you know what I mean? And, and then we got into a thing where we felt like, well, we can't lose now. We could just experiment like crazy, and then we won't lose. And then we obviously at some point we sort of got shut down with that idea. But yeah, I mean, definitely those younger years were very free. I mean, like I feel like some of those are some of the best times in my life and the best times in this band. Not that today isn't great, but it was like, it was one of like no cares in the world type of thing. And you can kind of hear that in those records.
Absolutely. And then after Saturday Night Wrist and, the Aero sessions and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something you and I have not talked about, but I've always wanted to, because I mean,
sure.
I love Chi. He was such a good guy with like what a beautiful heart.
Yes.
He was like, you know what I mean? Like every
Yes.
time we hung out, I just, he just brought so much shine and, soul to everything that he was doing. And
for sure. I mean,
and I'm grateful I was friends with him, like with you guys.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. I mean, on the, I listened to some of those old records and musically even, I mean, like his, the way he played bass, everything. I mean, it's just like just very, very heavy, like soul, you know what I mean? And personally, obviously, I mean, the dude was like, just like very smart, very silly and fun to be around, and just like, can sort of take you, if, no matter what, you could be in the crappiest mood, and that dude would like come in and he would just like, he'd make you laugh about something ridiculous.
He was always smiling.
Yes, he was.
Like
he really was, man.
Yeah. And I, that's why it was, just, I mean, I can only imagine what it was like for you guys. You know what I mean? And,
well, what was crazy is that, okay, so when we were doing the Saturday Night Wrist record, I mean, that was pretty much like the starting of like, well, actually, when we were doing the self-titled album, those were sort of some dark times that was when the beginning of the dark times that we call it, like the dark days or whatever, in being in this band, and most of that was just, for all of us living in excess and not really, the music became secondary to like, the antics of our personal lives or whatever. So the music sort of suffered a little bit to them at that point, but we still held together. And then when it came time to make the Saturday Night Wrist record, we were pretty dysfunctional. I mean, we were all sort of, we all had our own personal issues with drugs or whatever. We all, had relationship issues, all, amongst ourselves and, in our own personal lives. And our communication just like at some point, just like pretty much was not there. I mean, it was one of those things where we were trying to make that record and, one person would come in, throw down a part, and then leave. And then a week later, someone else would come in and put a part over that, blah, blah. But it was like, we weren't communicating really at all. We were like, I think we're in this false pretense, like I was saying earlier, about how with White Pony, we experimented and we took our time and experimented and it worked. With this one, we were, I guess thought we were doing the same thing, but we weren't, because at least with White Pony, we were sort of, we were butting heads a little bit, but in the midst of doing that, we were building like on top of each other's ideas and outdoing each other's ideas. But so by the end of the record, you had this awesome piece of work that was like us, like really communicating, like arguing sometimes, but communicating still. And with Saturday Night Wrist, we weren't communicating hardly at all. So the music suffered for that, and it took like 3 years or so for that record to even be finished. But my point is that by the time that record was done, the band had almost broke up, whatever, but it was done. And at that point, we started touring again, and we started reconnecting as a band and as friends. And like, we really sort of just like realized that, wow, we've been wasting the last few years of our lives, like, not being best friends, like how it was when we started this band. So we really started to reconnect, and we toured for that whole record cycle, and then we went in to go start making the Eros sessions. And my point is that we were getting along so well during the Eros sessions. It's like the music actually was even taking a back seat to like our friendships. Like, we'd go into the studio, and we were way into like playing that board game Risk at the time. So we'd like set up this. We had this elaborate game of Risk that would go like, we'd start a game and it'd last for weeks at a time, and we would just like play. And Terry Date was producing that record. He'd come in, he'd go, "Come on, guys, let's get to work." We're like, "All right, we're going one more game," or blah blah blah, but we were having so much fun together as friends and reconnecting that right at that, during those sessions is when she had his accident. And so it was like, it's like we'd been through all this, and we were just like, on the brink of just like, doing something great, with all these great vibes around it. And that happened. And it just like, it just kind of, we were just broken at that point. We were like, what do we do? Honestly, we didn't even, there was no even thoughts really of like, are we going to continue as a band? I mean, we just pretty much figured that's it. You know what I mean? We took a good, 6 months to a year where we didn't, none of us even, the music wasn't even spoken about. Obviously, our thoughts were with Chi, and hoping that he was going to come out of his situation. Because those who don't know, he was in a coma, but pretty much. So, and the doctors, they didn't, they couldn't give us an answer whether he was going to come out of it. I mean, they said he could or he could not. I mean, it's up to that. So we remained optimistic, but like I said, I don't think we really had any thoughts of what was going to happen with the group, the music itself that we've been working on, or anything in the future. And then one day we all met, and we still have it actually, the studio in Sacramento that we were writing that record, and we've worked there for years and years. And we all met up there one day, and we were sitting down. We were kind of talking about, because it was weird because all our gear was still set up, like Cheese bass, everything was set up in the circle that we always set up into to write and record in, and he wasn't there, but it was like everything in the room was exactly the way we left it when we were working last, and so we just we started talking. We spent probably about an hour or two just sitting there talking about Chi and about telling stories from our first days meeting him to where we were at that moment. And then at that point, instead of taking the conversation over to, so what do you want to do now? Everybody just sort of walked over to their gear like natural, and we just started playing. And in that moment, we started writing what would become Diamond Eyes. And then obviously, we thought about, okay, well, what are we going to do for bass? And Sergio's name obviously came up. He filled in for Chi once before. When Chi broke his foot years ago, we were touring with Black Sabbath, and he had broke his foot. So we didn't want to cancel the tour. So we got our buddy Sergio from Quicksand to fill in, and he did a great job. So it was like, so we called Sergio. It was like, if Sergio can and wants to do it, then then we'll see where this goes. But if not, what I mean, then I guess that's pretty much it, because I don't think we were in that mindset to kind of go look for a bass player or go audition people or anything like that. So yeah, he came in, and then it just felt right away, and he was just like more than honored to be a part of it. I mean, obviously he was a friend of Chi as well, and then we just kind of buried ourselves in the music, in that record, and all the things that we were going through, and it was one of those things in life where you really realize like how precious things are, and like how lucky we are at that point in our career that we still had the opportunity, that enough people cared about us, our music and whatever, to like that we should make some more and do this together, and then we did, carried on from there,
which I think is beautiful. I mean, let's face it, and I'm sure she would have wanted you to do that anyway.
Oh, I believe so. I mean, we so after that, we actually we were by the time that record came out and we were out touring with it and stuff, he was at that point, he was in a hospital in New Jersey, and and we all went and visited him there, like whatever. And you know, it was a really hard thing because you're sitting there staring at your friend. His eyes are open. He's sitting there staring at all of us, and we're all talking to him and, you know, telling stories, whatever. But you know, he has no expression. He's pretty much just sort of stuck in there. So it was a really sad thing to see. But it was like one of those things where like it was very therapeutic for us as well to be able to, like, you know, be there as a band and you know, just talk. And we were listening to music, putting on some of his old favorite records and stuff like that, and just like whatever. And you know, I'm glad that we got a chance to do that. You know, because sadly, you know, I think a couple of years after that, you know, he eventually passed away, and it, you know, due to just like complications of being in a hospital bed for that long, and you know, getting infections, things like that. You know, basically his heart gave out, and you know, he died, and that was I think that was like 2-3 years ago now. I mean, it's been a little bit, but you know, it's one of those things where, like, you know, I talk to you and you bring it up, and you know, people that have known him, whatever. It's I don't mind. I love talking about him because he was such an integral part of this band, and friends, and of, you know, of a person that I shared pretty much every day of my life since I was a kid, you know, grew up with basically, and slept right across from him on the bus, you know, every night. So it's like you know, it's definitely his memory is very much a part of every day for us still.
He was, and what a lovely guy he was. I mean, just amazing. And I also have to quickly say, you know, one of my favorite moments was when the guys in Korn, when they were doing "Life Is Peachy," were like, "Oh, well, we named this song after Chi because it sounds like one of his bass lines."
That's
you
true.
know what I mean, right?
That's funny.
It was so great, right?
That's funny. Yeah.
So like that'll always stay with me. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And, which is great. So talk to me about making Gore, the latest record.
So
which
yeah,
I think is.
So it was a trip. I mean, it was, you know, anytime we go in to make records now, it's never, you know, we don't go in with any preconceived sort of idea of what we're trying to create or what we're trying to do, period. I mean, it's kind of like, let's get in a room and let's lock ourselves in there for, you know, 4 or 5 hours a day and just like start making some noise and see what comes out. And it's worked for us on the last, you know, that we did that with Diamond Eyes, pretty much that's how we worked. And then with Kono Yokan, we did the same. Yeah. We did the same way, and it worked well. Yet, you know, even still, like, that works. There's not really a formula kind of involved in it. It's more or less just like, you know, wherever everybody's at in their day, you know, when we put ourselves in a room together, you know, this is what's going to happen. And, you know, there were some great things that happened, you know, right after the beginning. And then, you know, and there were some days where, like, you know, things were just like not happening. And it wasn't a bad scene. I mean, we still had fun in there, whatever. But, like, you know, Stefan withdrew a lot during the songwriting part of it. And to this day, I mean, he's done that on a few of our records. I mean, you know, not completely. And with this one, he didn't do it completely either with this one. But he, you know, it's sort of everybody. It's one thing you have to realize when you're in a band with, you know, with 5 different people who live 5 different lives, and, you know, is been friends as long as we have, and all love each other dearly. But we can be on different wavelengths at different times. You know what I mean? And the best thing for us to do is to give people space. You know what I mean? Like, if whatever. So that's what he did. He sort of just, like, his mind was somewhere else, and he gave us space. So what happened was that by the time we were pretty much, like, we had albums, if not more, worth of material. He was only part of maybe a third of it, you know, or it only played along with, like, a third of the record at that point. And, you know, we didn't want to just. It was one of those things where, like, it'd be more awkward if we just stopped working and just said, "Okay, Stefan, when you're ready, then come in." So we just kept writing. We just kept doing stuff, and then one day he just came in. And he had parts for, like, all the songs, and every song just escalated to another level. Now, do I believe that if he would have been there in the beginning, would the record be a little different and maybe a little better? Maybe, possibly, probably. But it is what happened. And I mean, and like, I kind of look at all of our records as like a snapshot of where we are at that time frame in our lives, in our days. That's how it looked. And when I listen to some of our records, they take me back to that time. And I'm sure this one will do the same exact thing, you know. So it wasn't a thing where we weren't getting along. And Stefan was very vocal about that as well too, like in the press, and then people were starting to say, well, what's going on? And and they always assume that it's Stefan and I going head to head, that I want the record to sound like this and he wants the record to sound like that, which is too black and white. That's not it at all. I mean, everybody in the band has an opinion, and everybody is nobody's afraid to speak up, and that's what I love about making music with them, because no one's just like settling for anything. Everybody just wants to has, I guess, certain ways that they expect things to be, or a certain quality or whatever, and a song is usually not finished until everybody is equally excited about it. So sometimes it takes a while or whatever, but when we get there, that's when we know. And but we did it, we pulled it together, and at the end of the day, it's like one of those things where I even told him when we were writing, I was like, one day, because he was complaining about this one song, which this song, it became Hearts and Wires, and he hated it. He was just like, I don't understand this song. What is this? And I was like, Stefan, you're going to love it. I was like, trust me, we're going to be mixing this song. We're going to be sitting in the studio, and you're listening to the mixes, and you're going to turn to me, you're going to tell me how much you love it. And he, chuckled it off, whatever. But sure enough, he did. And it's not that I had this clairvoyance of that, how great it was going to be, but I know when we're working on something and everybody's equally or the majority of us are equally just kind of intrigued by something, that it has potential to be great. And and sometimes one guy, sometimes it's me, I don't see it. Sometimes they're writing stuff and okay. I never tell them to stop doing it. I'll just sort of just sit or maybe just sit down and do some writing, or just kind of let them do their thing. And I think that's important for us to be vocal, but at the same time, no one's too overbearing in this band. Everybody listens to each other, and and that that is sort of what makes it what it is. It makes it not contrived and different from most other bands.
Which is true. I mean, and that's one of the great things. And I'm so happy you guys are still doing it, man. So, Chino, I want to thank you for coming by and doing this today.
Oh, no worries, man.
So happy to, catch up with you, my brother.
No, it's great. It's great to talk to you, especially, that somebody who's, who we've known for a long time, but, who actually has a history with our band and has, good questions. It's not just the typical run-of-the-mill questions. So it makes it interesting for me too. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just have one more question about Phantom Bride and working with our old friend Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains on that. Tell me how that collaboration came about.
So that was a track that was actually written by Stefan, which is another thing that's kind of funny, because I think a lot of people in general just think that the heavier songs are the ones that Stefan writes, and then the more mid-tempo tracks that are from me, and that can be far from the truth. Stefan actually wrote that riff, and he was playing it over and over again, and it was very hypnotic, and I was like, we got to make a song out of that. So we ended up building a song out of that. We had the whole song there, and the song itself was initially had three verses long, but a pretty standard what do you call it? Just structure, I guess, of the song. But where the third verse was, just sitting in the studio one day, I had an idea. I was like, what if this was this opened up into a guitar solo or something like that? And we've never had guitar solos in our songs. For one, I mean, I can't play guitar solos. Stefan can play them, but he chooses not to. So I was like, well, if we do, who would sound awesome over this? Obviously Jerry's was one of the first names that came up. His his guitar voicing is very, very distinct. I mean,
he's one of the greats.
Yeah, I mean, just the way he bends his notes, his choices. His note choices are awesome. And he's a great friend of ours. We've known him for a lot of years, a lot of years. And obviously love and respect him as a musician, and everything else Chains does and everything. So I actually texted him on the phone. I said, hey, we have this song. We're in the studio right now. We have this song. Would you be willing to maybe play some guitar on it? And he's like, sure, let's send it over. Let me check it out. I sent him the song, and instead of him sending me back a text or an email saying that, oh, I heard the song, whatever, blah, blah, he sent me the song back with him playing guitar on it, a demo of it. He did
That's so cool.
He did it that night, and I was just like, I was just I'm listening to it, and it's our song, and then all of a sudden it like morphs into this Alice in Chains vibe, you know what I mean? Which is, like I said, his voicings are so distinct. So yeah, he sent me the demo back, which is pretty much what he played on the record. And then he, once we actually really recorded the song for real, he came into the studio and laid it down, and it was just like, it was one of those magical moments that I always remember. It was really, really, really special.
Yeah, he's got that thing, and it's great on the song, man.
Right on.
Hey, so Chino, listen, I wanted to just thank you for doing it today, okay? And so glad you came in, man.
No
Thanks
worries,
for
man.
doing.
Right on. Thank you.
Hey, listen, so I'm gonna come see you next Friday.
Oh, great. Where are we at next Friday?
Yeah, I want to ask you. You're in San Francisco, right?
Okay.
I want to come with a few of my friends.
For
and
sure.
I just would love to. I want to bring my friends, and I want to come say hi to you, man.
Okay. Yeah.
And come say hi to you and Abe and Steph, and I'm gonna meet. I haven't seen Sergio in years.
Okay.
It'd be fucking cool.
Oh, that'd be great. We'd all love to see you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do I? What's the best thing to do? I mean, do you want to?
I'll when I get back, whatever, I'll hit up Bino and I'll have him reach out to you and to make sure you're all taken care of.
That'd be great. Can I give you my email or phone number? Would
Yes.
that be all right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Here it is. It's
Can you write this down?
my phone number.
Okay.
5.
Great.
And
Great. I'll
right,
text
yes.
you. I'll text you when I get out of here, and then we'll figure it all out and get you set up. I'd love to see you.
yeah, because I want to come see and hang with you guys.
Great.
I miss you, dude.
No,
You know what I
it'd be
mean? It'd be great.
Hell yeah.
All right.
All right, man.
It sounds. All right, Chino. Thank you, man. So you got that down. You got the phone number.
Got it.
All right, and I will see you a week from Friday.
Sounds good,
okay?
man. Sounds good.
All right. All right. Take care, Chino.
You
Thanks
too.
so much.
Uh-huh.
It's Chino from the Deftones, right here on 2 Hours of Matt Pinfield. Thanks, Chino.
No problem, man. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Love you, brother. Take care.
Thank you, Matt.
Hey, guys.
Can you
Hey,
guys
guys.
hear me?
Hey,
Yeah, I can hear you still.
yeah, I think Chino's gonna do some liners, right?
Yeah, do you
Oh,
mind
okay.
sticking around to do a couple of liners?
Sure.
Yeah. All right, guys, I gotta jump off and go to another meeting. I'm so sorry,
right,
man.
man.
I'm not.
No, it's all right.
All
We
right,
can
Matt,
take care of these.
Matt, leave me pod.
I'll leave you guys.
potted
I'll
up,
leave
Matt.
you in, and Chino, I can't wait to see you, man. I
right.
will see you a week from Friday, my brother.
Sounds
and say
good.
hi. Tell the guys I'm pumped to hang with them.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. We'll see
All
you.
right. Take care. Bye bye.